Valentines from our own Tony. We love her. We honor her in the Tony Jones way that she delivers the truth. We love it. We love it. We love it. So we are discovering more of our work ethic. And we are going into more of our feminine abundance series today. So today we are talking about softer living. Softer living, is it a threat or an opportunity for alpha femaleness? So this abundance series continues to give birth to itself as we explore feminine abundance. And in our private space of the Queen's Peace Mastermind, we are living the feminine abundance formula, the basics, the feminine abundance basics formula, which we call the Fab Factor. So I want to put some context around this conversation, an extension of this conversation. You know, when we were doing Rihanna Fix My Life, one of my favorite shows was a show that I can say we fought for. And that's the show with the 4 women. How many of you watched the show? If you're in the room, go ahead and say hello. I'll definitely check for you in the comments. And you can put your name behind. If you haven't given permission for us to see your name, you will have to place your name there so we can see it. Oh, I see what's happening here. Let me see 1 second. For some reason, it only went on YouTube today. Let's see. Okay, we should be coming up on Facebook any moment now. All right. Yeah, technology is tricky sometimes, right? So again, we are continuing in our series of the Feminine Abundance Factor, and I want to give you some context of hey, how are you? Yes. One of the other producers from Rihanna Fix My Life is in the comments and saying this. He said, "This is such a treat for me since I fought against the show." And one day we'll get a chance to tell this story. In fact, maybe we should do a show, Robert, on this, around this, because we have never really, delved into this. And I would love to dive into it with you. So let me just give you some context. So we've really fought for this show behind the scenes. When people ask, what do you do on Fix My Life and all of that, most people only see what's in front of the lens, the thing that you see in front of you. But you don't know what goes on behind, particularly the work of the coaches to prepare the guest and prepare Iyanla, in this case, for the show, what goes on behind the scenes, behind those scenes before we even get to a show, before there's a process that of deliberating, if you will. And everybody has a say. It's a very creative process. And for those of you who are in corporate America, you may not be familiar with this type of creative process amongst executives like I was, where everybody has an opinion and speak freely about their about their stand on why we should do a particular thing. So because our work has been so centered with Black women, when I say our, I do mean the Reverend Dr. Iyanla Vanzant and I. And of course, I can't speak for the other coaches who are from other cultures, but they saw the value as well, because they too crossed over and worked in the range of successful women in the West in this particular culture. And this is a population of women who I believe are oftentimes looked over, because this system and this culture rewards performance. And so oftentimes, if a woman appears to have it all, people tend to look over what's going on the inside, except for when she doesn't have what's called all, and most of that is love. She can have the things of success materially, the house, the car, the look, the travel, and sometimes even raising her own children. And it's become a bit of a badge of honor, a sifting process for many women who are successful in the context of love. And so Iyanla loosely named this particular show Loveless in the City, like Sex in the City, but Loveless in the City. But we went through several variations of this particular show. Now, this conversation today is not all about that, but I want to give you some context because the way that it unfolded was nothing but the divine. When I talk about juicy, when I talk about doing this work of the divine feminine, the way that this particular show unfolded, because it really was voted down. Like, we had to fight against one of the male voices in the comments, and he's a strong voice and an opinionated voice. And when you are in boardrooms, so to speak, I'm just talking about my conditioning, the last thing that you want to do as an executive is appear combative. I mean, that was the whole context of the show. But my brother and a few of the other men on the panel, they were almost to the point of combative about this, not doing this particular show. Long story short, we were given a kind of a green light, maybe a yellow light. And that particular, maybe in a couple of weeks of us still trying to decide about shows and casting the show, because there is a casting element. I had an interview at a radio station. I was actually doing a special event with Ash Cash and the Six Figure Spa Chick around love and work and couples coming together to create businesses together. And he's speaking in the comments on YouTube. And we went to the show to advertise another show and my book, My Juicy Rebirth. And so, Ash Cass was representing the whole couple piece with he and his wife, and the Six Figure Spa Chick was presenting a piece on the trucking industry and an opportunity for couples to do business together. And I was presenting a piece on women and our relationship with love, sex, and money, the sensuality piece. And in that, when we started talking, Miss Shanika said, I need to come to fix my life. I need my life fixed. And I said, really? And she was talking about her experience with love and failures with love. And I said, it's so funny you mentioned that. It was almost as if the case was being made for the very thing that we had just talked about a few weeks ago. And I said, if you can get more of your friends, I will pass it on and push it through. So I did that. Long story short, they ended up being my clients on the show as well. It was an amazing show. Their lives were forever impacted. So much so that now, after doing the work on Iyanla Fix My Life, and they continue to work with me, Miss Shanika and Crystal Jordan are now married. And they credit the reason that they got into an attractive space to shifting from the hardened place that they were in. Are y'all still with me? I'm doing a little story time here to lay the context of this conversation. And I want to give you some definitions as well as we go into this conversation. But again, the evidence is in the lives of these women. And so this Galentine's Day, let me see if you can see the book. Miss Crystal Jordan wrote a book called Dear Alpha Female. It's you, not him. Am I saying it right? Dear Alpha Female, it's not him, it's you. All from her lessons of working with us on Fix My Life and also working with me, but mainly in her life and what was showing up in her life. And in this particular event, there was a discussion, a phenomenal discussion panel. I posted it on my Instagram page. If you want to go take a look at a snippet, I probably could have recorded the whole thing live, but it was a paid event, and you always try to respect a paid event. And the discussion was phenomenal. I mean, it was all aspects and opinions and variations of women who had it all. They were millionaires. And a lot of the conversation was about when you become a millionaire, a lot of the women, when we come together, what we're talking about is, well, what you got going on? And so it becomes, I have this going on and I have that going on. And then if there is any authenticity in that particular circle, you get to the real conversation of what's covering up the performance. In other words, I say it this way: successful on the outside and feeling insignificant when it's time for you to go home, and nobody ever sees that. That's the case that I made in the Fix My Life deliberation. Okay. And we were and so that's some of the context of today, right? Around alpha femaleness. I want to capture that piece for you today. But I also want to capture, right before Galentine's Day, there was all the talk about Rihanna's Superbowl. How about that? Rihanna had everyone lit up. And the criticism that Rihanna received from people, from her own people, let's say it like that, particularly for women who were saying they were underwhelmed by a woman who was pregnant and did a suspended animation halftime performance because she wasn't gyrating like she did in the past. They didn't get the artistic representation of the sperm and the amoeba and being surrounded by men. And so people said they were underwhelmed. And what my caption said was, isn't it interesting? Hard ass women criticizing a softer living, well-paid, and frequently laid woman. I'll say it again. Isn't it interesting? Hard ass women criticizing or critiquing or judging softer living and by a well-paid and frequently laid woman. Isn't that interesting? So the context of poverty consciousness, our relationship with work, our expectation for women to perform at a certain rate of motion, to entertain us, to titillate us. What is it that women have expectations of for other women? It was very interesting because we see another generation of women representing not just that I can have it all, but what's interesting about Rihanna is she has not put out any new music in maybe 4 years or more. And there's a demand from her fans. Please, Rihanna, give us something. Give us something. They want something from Rihanna. Can you relate, sisters, if you are a woman and people want something from you, but you are in a season where you're not just trying to produce and do output, but people are pulling on you. They want something from you. Now, she's an artist and a creative, but this happens in the everyday lives of women oftentimes that we don't, you're not able to say no to. Isn't it very interesting? And then when you don't give people what they want, they have a judgment about you or a question about you, even though this woman is a billionaire who is making her mark in other markets. a beautiful model for other young women to diversify your income, even for those of us who have goals to live in the abundance and to live softer. So there were times where Prince didn't put out music for years and his fans wanted something from him, but were they judging him? Were they questioning him? You can put in the comments if there were other artists that come to mind in your generation or some of your favorites who took time. We could even go outside of music and into other creative departments where there are authors who don't just produce back to back to back. Even sometimes with me as a coach, I'm not always launching and putting programs out there, which doesn't mean that I'm not working. What it means is that when I put something out, it's quality. It's intended to be of service to the needs of my particular audience. And not only that, I'm not a salesman. I'm not a glorified salesman, although some coaches are trained in the department of sales first, right? All right. We have some context. Now I want to go further. All right. I want to go further. Then there was Galentine's Day. Yes, yes. Now, Galentine's Day is new to me. Is it new to you? How many of you just started getting into this Galentine's Day? Now, Galentine's Day is supposed to be the celebration of love for friends. Why do you think a Galentine's Day needed to become something, a cultural experience for women in particular? That's really who I see. I don't see any men getting together for Galentine's Day. Talk back to me. It's new for you too? Okay, we got some confirmation it's new. Now we have Galentine's Day, another commercial day so that women who don't have a Valentine to not feel bad. Okay? And that was a topic of conversation. It's been a busy, energetic week. Okay? So all of this in the context around womanhood, love, this softer life, because love tends to soften you. Although lovelessness can also make, and oftentimes make a woman hard, but it also can make a man harder, right? In the sense of energy, we're talking. Okay, so I want to do something here. I want to just give some context a little bit. As I look away at the screen right now, I want you to know I'm pulling some pieces for you because the term alpha male is also new. I want to jump a little bit here. We gave the context of what we're talking about. Now I want to look at the use of certain titles and adjectives and adverbs that are being assigned to us in the culture. Alpha male is a fairly new term that was applied to humans through the studies of chimpanzees to describe dominant behavior of males in a pack. So isn't this interesting? It was first published by Franz D. Walls of Chimpanzee Politics. Now, this is not the first time in the culture that the study of animals starts to apply to civilized men and women. And now we have taken it on and we begin to use this term. It's a made-up term. It's a term that did not apply to human psychology before, let me see, I'll look for the date for you, about 1970. 1970, it became published in The Wolf, Ecology and Behavior of an Endangered Species. Come on, somebody, catch that T. The Wolf in 1970, Ecology and Behavior of an Endangered Species. Okay? By David Meck. Now check this out. It's very interesting that now the endangered species of four-legged creatures is now not only applying to men or males when we talk about gender, it's applying to females. And the term female is now up for debate and becoming a political issue. But let's just leave it where it is for our womanhood, because the question may be for another talk is womanhood becoming something endangered? Let that sink in. Is your womanhood as a softer, nurturing, nurtured being something that has become endangered? And that is why I'm asking the question today. Softer living, an invitation or a threat to alpha femaleness? This, my sisters, is a question for us to consider in our own circles of womanhood, in our own sacred work around our femininity. Because as you soften, as you begin to embrace the parts of you that came hard, the parts of you that was repelling what you desired, it showed up for this sister from doing a greater work. One of the things that she said, I want to say that Crystal pointed out at her book launch. She said, I want you ladies to get it. She said she remembers that Rihanna said, I want you all to understand that we're not doing this show for you. Now, I'm going to give you context for that in a minute. She said, we're doing it for the millions of women like you. The reason why she had to lay that context is because the ego of women in the entertainment industry and media in particularly is so around image and so built around exposure and being seen and being on the one network so that you can get seen by another network, and you can put this now in your references. She clarified and addressed the ego head on, and she said that sat with her. So I really applaud my sister, my client, my friend, now family, for doing this work, because she really took it on, because that's one of the things we get to do. When we do our work, we aren't just doing our work for us. Otherwise, it is very ego-centered. When a woman heals herself, she's healing for 7 generations before her, 7 generations behind her. The feminine work is epigenetics. The work I do is really deeply epigenetics. But if you meet me on an elevator at a networking event and you say, what do you? And I say, I do epigenetics. Honey, you gonna be like, what is that? So I just tell you, I turn love, sex, and money blind spots into breakthroughs. But honey, what we're doing is epigenetics. Can any juicy butterflies that's watching comment that you have seen your daughter healed from the work that you did for yourself? Come on, let's take a testimony break. Let's take a praise break. How many of you women who have gone through the rites of passage have seen that you've saved your marriage, or you saw your sister save her marriage, that you have a new relationship with work and money and career because you were still measuring yourselves by the context of alpha maleness? Now, what I want you to understand is pretty soon we'll probably hear more about the other different types of maleness that are going to now spill over to females, because there's not just the alpha male, because everybody isn't an alpha female, but there are always personality types. And the beta male gets a bad reputation as someone who's weak, right? But there's also a omega male, a sigma male, okay? A bravo male. And then these terms spill over into our femaleness. In other words, we kind of become it kind of becomes a carryover, a little bit of an afterthought. But do we have to take on? Because in spirituality, we say it's not what they call you, it's what you answer to. And I understand that. And when we look at the work of womanist theology, when we look at the work of womanism and feminism, that there is a divide in this conversation as well, even amongst us again, because feminism, oftentimes melanated women were left out of this conversation of advocating that women were supposed to be equal to men. That was the foundation of feminism. However, when we look at womanism, which is a term that was coined by the Alice Walker, and we've seen it in the works of Bell Hooks and Toni Morrison, and I love the Reverend Renita Weems, and there's a sister named Katie Cannon, and now we have other sisters like Trisha Hersey. I'm throwing their names out because when you Google womanism, particularly for us to be able to reference melanated voices, we oftentimes do not see enough of us. We get blended in with feminism. We blended in with all of the feminist type of theology, writing, and I say theology, cancel that. Let's just say feminism type of psychology, if you will. But womanism is quite different. It's a softer way of approaching the rights of women. And I have something that I want you to look at to put more meat on the bones of this conversation, even as you all continue to enter in the room. I want to share something with you from the Bell Hooks as well. Let's see if I can get a share in here. Okay. All right. Okay. Let's see if I can get this in here for you. All right. I think I'm right here. I'm right where I need to be. You should be able to see this now. I'm going to make it larger for you to see it.
I began to use the phrase in my work, white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, because I wanted to have some language that would actually um, remind us continually of the interlocking systems of domination that define our reality, and not to just have one thing be like, gender is the important issue, race is the important issue. But for me, the use of that particular jargonistic phrase was a sort of shortcut way of saying all of these things actually are functioning simultaneously at all times in our lives. And that if I really want to understand what's happening to me right now at this moment in my life as a Black female of a certain age group, I won't be able to understand it if I'm only looking through the lens of race. I won't be able to understand it if I'm only looking through the lens of gender. I won't be able to understand it if I'm only looking at how white people see me. I mean, one of the to me, an important breakthrough I felt in my work and that of others was the call to use the term white supremacy over racism, because racism in and of itself did not really allow for a discourse of colonization and decolonization, the recognition of the internalized racism within um, people of color. And it was always, in a sense, keeping things at the level at which whiteness and white people remained at the center of the discussion. In my classroom, I might say to students, that when we use the term white supremacy, it doesn't just evoke white people, it evokes a political world that we can all frame ourselves in relationship to. And I think that I was able to do that because I grew up again in racial apartheid, where there was a color caste system. So that obviously I knew that through my own experiential reality, that it wasn't just what white people do to Black people that was wounding and damaging to our lives. I knew that when we went over to my grandmother's house, who looked white, who lived in a white neighborhood, and she called my sister Blackie because she was dark and her hair was nappy, and my sister would sit in a corner and cry or not want to go over there. I knew that there is some system here that is hurting this little girl, that is not directly the direct hit from the white person. And white supremacy was that term that allowed one to acknowledge our collusion with the forces of racism and imperialism.
Okay, I want to stop right here because I love the word that she said, and that is our collusion. Sometimes we are holding up systems that we did not create, just like we're using terms to apply to our womanhood, femaleness that we did not create. So when we look at softer living, is it new? I want to ask you, when you think about your grandmothers, is soft living new, or did they have a hard life? And the answer may be yes, but then ask further. And if you didn't see it, ask in your prayers, because maybe you are the one that was born to be the reemergence of a softer life, where you are not trying to uphold a system unconsciously by domination. There are women using terms even in coaching circles about dominating. What does it cost us to dominate or to reproduce our businesses or to go and at the pace and the rate of motion? What does it cost us? Is it costing us our feminine organs, our wombs, our fertility? Is it costing us our families? Is it breaking down our male-female relationships, not only with for love on Valentine's Day, but is it also costing us our relationship with our fathers and our uncles? Is it costing us our relationship with the predatory nature of survival and poverty, and the stories that have not been told, that we are picking up torches that are from wounds, not from wealth? But if we just dig a little bit through our ritual work, through our healing work, through our rites of passage, through our self-discovery, through our self-realization, our DNA will begin to speak to us, and we will be drawn. They say when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I have found so much healing balm in the words of these womanist writers, who I only discovered some of them after I did my work. And you will find that even when you do your work, you'll find confirmation in other women who went before you. Sisters, we're always standing on the backs of another woman who did not have the space to be soft. So it's not a privilege. It's a birthright. It's a birthright for Rihanna to do it her way. It's a birthright for her to have a baby on her terms, back to back. How many of you came from families where your mother had children back to back to back, but not because she was making a conscious decision? How many of you had to get up and go to work after giving birth to your child, but she has an option? She lived a full life without shame, without condemnation. She's an island girl. There was she did, even if she came from the old paradigms of church, she proudly walked. Rihanna, I like talking about her because just a few weeks before we were talking about Beyonce, and she's still under attack by an institution. Imagine the type of game, and this is why I asked the question, sisters. Softer living, is it a threat or an invitation? because we see other women in that represent institutions like bell hooks talk about, because the whether we want to face this or not, some of the institutions that we protect did not protect us, including the church. I'm sorry if that's offensive, but it's documented, it's historical. We have churches on every block, we have liquor stores, and look at the condition of our people right next to the church. What is that? It begs us to ask some questions and to make some decisions about redefining womanhood. And I want to pull from my sister's chapter of redefining womanhood, where she says, she does a quote. I love this quote. She says, "Because I am a woman, I must make unusual efforts to succeed. If I fail, no one will say she doesn't have what it takes." Claire Booth Luce. And what Crystal goes on to ask the question, why did women stop loving womanhood? I pause, take that in. Why did women stop loving womanhood? Do we sometimes do womanhood with secret resentment? I want to ask that. I know women who are angry because they're raising their children alone, but they won't do the work to look to see how is this a pattern in my family, in my bloodline? What was my contribution in the failure of the relationship? It's easy to be a victim and to attack. I was recently coaching a sister, and this comes up a lot, by the way, with a lot of my executive clients, who came ready to end a relationship with a beautiful brother because he did not perform at her level, but he was performing at his. He had a job, a good job. She never had to pay for anything, but she had bigger goals. And she was ready to toss him out. And then when I began to work with her and ask and dig into what was really going on, the truth of the matter was the little girl who had unmet needs, who didn't feel secure, and had measured her own success by what she did and how she did it. And she was managing her man like an employee. I never have bought into, and I encourage you, I have never bought into the idea that there are no good men out here, that good men don't exist. And if you are sitting in circles with women who are having conversations about the availability pool, and you want to attract something based on spiritual law, you are getting your own way. Now, once you attract, how are you measuring? How are you measuring yourself? Are you still measuring yourself with the colonizer stick, like bell hooks referred to? Are you still measuring your own performance through masculinity? And now, when do you allow yourself to at least tell the truth and not have to have a crisis in order to say, I want something different. I desire a different way of being. There are some women who are so tired of surviving and outputting and performing that they want to work, and you feel guilty about that. But what if you are honest? I have a prayer partner who you say it's okay for you to say, I don't want to work. It's okay. Do you know a kept woman? Because being kept does not mean being idle. And it doesn't mean that you're weak. It doesn't mean the things that we have now inherited to define our womanhood. What is the soft life for you in this season? Is it working less or is it working in partnership? What is the soft life for you? Do you need more sleep and it would help, it would improve your health? What is the soft life for you that you have enough, but something in you is comparing yourself to someone else and say, I need more, I need more, I need more. When is enough enough? What is the soft life for you in terms of having children, not having children? Having help with your children? Are you always interfering when it's time for your boys to have more influence and input by the men in the family? Well, what you said, there's no men in my family. Well, where's the village? Because even if we look at our womanhood is not oftentimes always influenced primarily by the mother that we came from. We've been mothered, most of us, by many women. Come on now, who's with me on this? Are you feeling this day? Is this an ouch or an amen conversation today? Do we need to pause here so we can let this be digestible in itty bitty pieces so that we return to it? Because there is more. There's more. And that is why we're doing the Feminine Abundance series in the open discussion. But we're doing the work in the private room so that we can play a different game on the terms that we create for ourselves. Because maybe being alpha in the way that we have held it is exhausting. It's lonely. And it needs to be not only redefined, but rebirthed. Of course, I'm going to offer you the opportunity to rebirth yourself. Remember, JUICY is an acronym. Joyously unveiling intimacy's creative yes. Where are the areas in your life that you get to say yes courageously, creatively? Because we are so used to no's from this system, like Bell Hooks referenced. The context of what we're experiencing and defining our womanhood, our relationships with men and relationships with other women, even because it was other women judging Rihanna. The context of this is influenced and imprinted much more by our oppressive institutions and systems that we have been protective or unconsciously upholding much more than we oftentimes care to admit. And once we do, we can take a step back now and ask, what's the softer life for me? Because softness will take away some of the anger. Softness will take away some of the judgment. Softness will open our hearts so that we don't have to have the full armor ready to fight, ready to kick someone out. Now, some people, even in woman culture right now, are saying women who talk like me and who talk like this are called pick-me's. Oh, you just want to be a pick-me. Well, I already been picked. And before I got picked, I picked myself. And there's some power in picking yourself, because then you become pickable like fruit. When you know your own juices, when you can flow in your own juiciness. Because juiciness is the sacred art of releasing the divine waters within you so that you can draw into the well of yourself and water yourself and be a well-watered woman, so that when you come into the desires of your heart, or creating and attracting and magnetizing the desires of your heart, that you are not dehydrated. Oh yeah, juicy in all forms. And has many forms of alpha, beta, omega, sigma. There are many faces of the goddess. The fierce feminine is one aspect of us. One woman can be an embodiment of the fierceness and the warrior element, but another woman may be the embodiment of the grandmother, the nurturer. We see that in the Orisha system. We see that in the goddess theology. We see that in the colors in nature. We see that. We are diverse and layered in the expression. And the other thing is, our womanhood is seasonal. We go through seasons. I went through seasons. There were seasons where my edge was much harder because I was hurt. And sometimes when we take this time to judge another woman who is hurt, and sometimes even through achievement and degrees and titles and the microphone and being on the stage and at the front of the stage, you are still looking at a wounded, wealthy woman. And if you're comparing yourself, wanting what she has and not what is already designed for you, we can't classify that as alphaness. Because alphaness is based on dominant and dominating. But we can look at the systems that have groomed our psychology, the systems that have affected the condition of our heart and our emotions, the systems that we complain about and we wail about when we see our boys that are murdered in the streets, the same system that we cry about that we will accept as the measurement for our own families and how we mother and how we sister and how we wife and how we friend. Oh yeah, it's okay that there's a generation who's not asking for permission to live softer. But it's not okay for there to be a generation to be gatekeepers of being underwhelmed by the performance of a woman who is well paid and well laid. So we can laugh about it because I know this work is not easy when you take it on, but I salute all of you who have, and I invite all of you who desire to. Many are called, but few choose to answer. So salute to you sisters who have answered and continue to answer, because rebirth is not a one-time event. And when we are talking about rebirthing our womanhood, we only rebirth one aspect of ourselves, make room for another. So, softer living, is it a threat or an invitation? For those who it's a threat for, I just offer for you who have chosen to accept the invitation to be aware that just every woman may not be an ally to your choice now. But keep on keeping on, as the old people say. Keep going, as Harriet Tubman would say when she was fighting. Keep going and don't look back. Keep going. Keep going. And find more sisters with voices of the revolution of womanism, so that you too can become the evolution, the revolution, and rebirth 360 degrees of yourself. That you can look at the 8 to 9 departments of your life and slice up the pies and determine how you will divvy out yourself on your terms. I pray that this was of some service to you. And I see some of you say, let me show a few of the comments. My sister said, my heart is full today. You gave me another confirmation that I'm on the right path. Thank you, my love. Another sister confirmed. She said, I never thought there was no good men. Our brother here says, I love this so much. And we have another comment. It is very difficult being an alpha woman. Understanding her beyond the shallow is, but beyond the shadow lie. I agree, 100%. Yes. I thank you all who are commenting, or who are sharing, who are confirming, who are sharing. This is I cackle at women making other women feel bad for taking their time, getting their money righteously, minding their business, and being fully loved in this realm. This madness has to stop amongst Black women. We've been abused enough by patriarchal systems. Come on, y'all. Lafia, to you, my sister. And then we have another sister who said, Beyonce showed me you have to value your time when you know your worth a man more. Our brother said Sade has always taken her time between albums, a model for genius creation under the radar screen. You are so right about that. And she is also a model of soft energy. If you are still watching, if you can drop in the comments any soft living sisters that love and adore, you never know who's watching. You never know who's looking. It may be somebody in your bloodline. It may be someone who we see on stage that's soft. I love Lena Horne. That was one of my favorites. What about you? I love Diana Ross. And they're still living. I love even speaking the name. We speak the dead a lot of times, but it surely is an opportunity to speak the name of the living as well. Who are some of the examples of softer living that you know of, right? Who is it? Let's catch it. Let's see. Did you put any? I love to say I admire women who are soft. I've never been teach, comfort, nurture. Instead, I was taught to be protector, providing for them. Okay. Yes. See? And so now we have to unlearn some things. We get to unlearn some of these things, right? So if you want to play with us, play the game of the Queen's Piece, which we are basing off of the game of chess. And I give the context in the Queen's Piece. If you want to play the Queen's Piece and mastermind with other women who are defining and using and living the feminine abundance basics on their term, and you wanting to work with me, but you think I can't afford her, this is a very affordable way to start the work. If you have work, you've done the passage, you are building your own empire, so to speak. This is another way to work, to continue the work, to nurture the work. Come on in the Queen's Piece. Get off the sidelines. Stop watching. Stop talking about it. Invest in yourself. You cannot expect a return on something you never invested in, and it's not at the level of free. Not only that, we have to create sacred containers for us to not get off of the interwebs. This conversation can only scratch a surface, but we want to go beneath the surface and customize your game for you to make the next move. The queen is the most important piece on the chessboard, and chess in itself is a game of warfare. It was created to demonstrate warfare, and many of us are in spiritual warfare right now that affects our financial warfare or battles. It affects our relational warfare or battles. It reflects that. But when you know that you have pawns and bishops and you are flanked by certain moves, you may not have it in your family, but it may be that you need to surround yourself with a tribe that thinks this way, and you are attract energy into your life that is representative of this. And many are called, but few choose to answer, because you say, well, I want to work with you privately. I want to, and I got to wait. I got to get my money together for that. No, start where you are. Come and play the Queen's Piece. Now we meet tonight. If you want we meet once a month. We are talking all month and strategizing all month. And there's a way that we're moving through each month, and we have a theme. This particular theme this month is our business and emotions, our money and emotions, and how to govern them accordingly or leverage them so that we can continue to stay in the game, because sometimes our emotions take us out of the game. Now, last month we dealt with ancestral money charming, and next month there'll be another topic, and then the month following. But the game that we're playing is a formula that once you start to do it more and more, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, one move at a time, one jump at a time, one diagonal cross at a time. And sometimes the queen may get taken out, but in some cases we might have to start a new game, or you come back in under other circumstances. So art imitates life, and so this is an opportunity for you to become your own masterpiece. I love you, and there's nothing you can do about it. I hope I haven't talked your head off, and that you can come back, and if you came in late, and listen to the replay, share it with your friends. Don't be stingy. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. See you on the other side.